Relatives of narcissists, psychopaths, or sociopaths? What's your experience? Story 1. My sister has never been diagnosed with narcissism or a personality disorder other than OCD, but when we were younger, she often enjoyed telling people before I met them that I had a difficult relationship with the truth so that they wouldn't want to be around me. I had the reputation of being dishonest and no friends for most of my preteen years, and she was popular in our homeschool group until she left and went to high school. After she left, I still didn't have friends, but neither did she, and she blamed me for it during her frequent temper tantrums. She would throw things, scream, cry, and threaten me with kitchen knives on a regular basis. All of a sudden, the year that I turned 17 and she turned 21, the tantrums stopped and she got engaged. He moved in with us. The tantrums started again. And for once, I wasn't the target. The worst fight they had happened when she caught him looking at a photo of a bikini model, which she considered cheating. She hit him full force with an open palm, and when our mom saw, she threatened to ask her to leave if she did it again. They got married, moved out, and divorced within a year of him enlisting in the Army. Story 2. They can create drama out of any situation and will try to involve you even years later. Example, I am the next to youngest. My whole family is a complete mess, but when I was planning my wedding, I was still trying to pretend I had a reasonable family. My future husband's family was like a perfect sitcom family, so I asked both of my sisters to be bridesmaids. I knew this was a risk, but I hoped they could behave for a single evening. At the time, I thought they had. About 8 years later, we were in the same city because one of our brothers was in the hospital due to a bad car accident. We had one hotel room across the street from the hospital so people could rest when they needed to. I was in that room with my oldest sister when she said, "You know, middle sister took wine glasses from your wedding, right?" I told her I didn't care. A couple of hours later, I was in that room with my middle sister. She said, "You know, older sister took glasses from your wedding, right?" I also told her I didn't care. So here we were, waiting to see if our brother was going to survive, and both of them were playing games with me, trying to make me angry with the other one. Our brother recovered. I've cut contact with all my siblings because they are all like this. They have to start trouble no matter what the situation or consequences. Story 3. My brother was diagnosed with NPD at 16. He's never had empathy. Children usually learn empathy at some point, but it was like he never reached that developmental stage. He was unconcerned when people got hurt. He hurt and bullied others in school to get what he wanted. Doctors, therapists, medication, nothing made a difference. And it's not like there was some kind of trauma or a reason for his behavior. It was as if he was just born without it. When he was 10, he started taking and dealing drugs as a runner for some older teens. You can't be prosecuted under 14 in Germany. My parents called our version of CPS for help. He got more therapy, some inpatient stays, and his own social worker. He took my dad's car when he was 12 and was picked up by the police. He got his first charges at 14, drugs and assault. My parents were at their wits' end and agreed to have him placed in a group home for troubled teens for a year. He was removed shortly before the year was up. He came home and seemed to recognize, in a detached way, that he couldn't go on like this without ending up in prison. He was about 15. He started being less physically aggressive, but he had unrealistic delusions of grandeur and needed everyone to comply with whatever he wanted. If they didn't, he reacted with hostility. My parents still made him go to therapy. He assaulted my dad and choked him because he didn't want to go. My brother was 16, but also 6'3" and about 190 pounds. My dad passed away from a sudden aneurysm when he was 16, and he spiraled completely. He got a girl pregnant and she was asked to leave by her mom. My mom took her in. The girl was not a bad person, just had some issues, so it wasn't surprising that she'd date my brother, who could be charming if the situation demanded it. He attacked her at our house a couple months later while she was still pregnant. That was the last straw for my mom. She told my brother to leave. We helped the girl find an apartment for her and the baby. Not long after, my mom let my brother move back in. He seemed to think he was the head of the household. My parents never married, so my father's modest possessions went to me and my brother instead of my mom, and that included the car my dad bought a year before he passed. It was the first brand new car he ever bought, a small one, but he was proud of it. My brother made my mom sell it so he could get his half of the money. It wasn't even expensive, and my mom was devastated to lose my late dad's car. I was 20 then. My brother was 17. He was verbally abusive and constantly tormented my mom emotionally. He threatened to hurt me on a daily basis whenever I didn't do something or give him something he wanted. He also threatened me with worse things a couple of times. On a particularly bad day, he told my mom that he could easily get people to cause her harm when she went out. When the threats lost impact, he would physically attack me every couple of weeks. There was one particular instance where I was actually afraid he was going to seriously harm me. He did his usual routine of using me as a verbal punching bag because he had a bad day, and I was just burnt out. I didn't even react anymore. He hit me a couple of times and choked me. No idea how, but I fought him off, grabbed my phone and ran to the bathroom where I locked myself in before he could get to me again. He was trying to force the door while I called the police. They did nothing. Told me he lived there, so we'd have to get along, and since we both said opposing things, nothing would come of it. I insisted they take my statement. My mom wasn't home at the time, but she was a wreck anyway and couldn't cope anymore. A couple of days later, my aunt came to visit for a few days. My brother was his charming, manipulative self for her. My aunt tried to pressure me into not pressing charges, since apparently I had given myself the dozens of bruises and contusions I had, as my brother told her. I was severely depressed at that point and gave my mom an ultimatum, me or him. She told him to leave again. He came back a year later, and I moved out for college immediately. I don't blame my mom much anymore. Rock and a hard place and all that, but she never could understand that her love for her son was misplaced. He didn't have the qualities that make someone truly human. He had no empathy. He was not capable of love. He was just an empty shell going through life, trying to get whatever he wanted by whatever means necessary. I haven't spoken to or seen him in about 7 years, but my mom's still in contact with him. He went to Spain when the mother of his daughter tried to get child support. Sometimes my mom still talks about the things he's done. A couple examples. For some reason, his ex-girlfriend started letting him see his daughter, and she flew to Spain with my mom once or twice a year. Or used to, anyway. He locked the girl in the basement with food she couldn't finish because she was full. She was about 4 years old. She doesn't want to visit him anymore. He withheld rent from his Spanish landlord for about 6 months. The landlord had terminal cancer, and my brother saw it as a waste to give money to a dying man. He married a woman in Spain and had another child, and he now works as a realtor. From what I've heard, he still thinks he's exceptional. I don't think I'd even attend his funeral if he passed. Story 4. She called the police in CPS multiple times, repeatedly accusing our stepdad of child abuse. It usually happened when she had rules and consequences to follow. She didn't like that my parents had researched how to raise someone with severe behavioral issues without them becoming dangerous, because suddenly they knew all her tactics. I sometimes think about how sad it must be to be physically incapable of feeling human emotions, but clearly it would only have held her back. Edit. Her diagnosis was emerging antisocial personality disorder because they said they couldn't diagnose someone under 25 with the full condition. Dad acts very similar, so I assume whatever she has, he has it too. To add more now that I'm more awake, I lost almost all of my friends. My extended family, besides my immediate one, totally ignores me because my mom and I protected my stepdad by saying my sister was lying about the abuse. Just to be clear, we were investigated multiple times and CPS said they were doing a phenomenal job raising so many kids with complex mental health issues so well. They recorded the first 2 times as false claims, and after that they said, "We just have to investigate to be sure. Just do the interviews and get it done. We have to do it every time," which I do appreciate for the sake of children who are really being abused. But we had notes from therapists and counselors saying, "Has a history of lying and tells lies to get what she wants." Yet my entire family still thinks we were protecting someone dangerous. The real kicker is that our biological father is also diagnosed with severe personality issues and was actually abusive. Guess who she moved in with when my aunts refused to let her go back to my mom's? If you guessed our truly abusive dad, who was basically giving her training just by being around him, you'd be right. All our family who united in a so-called justice mission about child abuse are now close with the man who used to threaten me and hurt me when I was 7 or younger. I'm sure it makes my mom feel great too, knowing all her sisters took her abuser's side after a long, draining divorce battle that left her emotionally and financially exhausted for years. I could write a book about how much they've all hurt me, either by being this way themselves or by enabling it. I'm pretty certain that at least some of my aunts have narcissistic traits. Last week, my grandma went on a tirade about me not forgiving, but no one has ever apologized or even acknowledged that they did anything wrong. I won't cover up something that still hurts me regularly, and apparently that makes me the problem again. Story 5. My little brother has severe, narcissistic, antisocial, and manipulative traits. I come from a culture where family bonds are considered unbreakable, and no matter how bad your family is, you're expected to forgive, protect, and take care of them. For 25 years, we lived through absolute chaos because of him. It really pained me, but I gave up on him years ago. My mother, however, being a Turkish mom, forgave him countless times. But he only got worse. I knew something was wrong when we were still kids, but I still tried to be the good brother and role model. I would always protect him and at the same time get blamed for his mistakes. When my mother was in the hospital giving birth to my oldest sister, we were home alone and he asked me if he could play outside in the park in front of our home. I agreed. An hour or two later, his friend came back to tell me that my 11-year-old brother, I was about 13, had been arrested for theft. We were a well-off family. He never needed to steal. He did it for attention, upset that our new sister might take his place. I had to pick him up, crying from shame, while he smiled like nothing was wrong. The police brought us both home, where my parents had returned from the hospital with the new baby. The house was full of friends and acquaintances, and I felt deep embarrassment, apologizing to my mom and feeling responsible. As the years went by, it only got worse. We lived in a constant state of anxiety because of him. I'm too embarrassed to share most of the other stories. We finally cut him out of our lives after 25 years. Imagine hiding all your belongings because your home was never safe. Imagine never being able to ask for anything as a teen, because if I asked for 5, he would have to get 50. Imagine fearing that if you left, he might threaten our mother or take her possessions. For a while he had a girlfriend, and my mom hoped it would help him change. Instead, he treated her like property. One time he was yelling at her, threatening her, and dragging her down the stairs. I intervened, told him if I ever heard him behave like that again, I'd stop him, and she ran off. He later explained that he was angry because she talked back and wouldn't lend him money. He was spending huge amounts in clubs at the time. When she finally left him, he called her father to insult her and sent him inappropriate personal items of hers. He then became incredibly depressed, not because he cared for her, but because she had left his property. Soon after, he took my parents' new car and crashed it into a wall just enough to total it without injuring himself. He had his own car but claimed it had no fuel, which I later found full. He used this incident to emotionally manipulate my mom, claiming he was sue us and blaming us for not supporting him enough. The only person he actually feared was me, so I felt a constant burden to keep him in check. I couldn't leave my mom alone with him, fearing for her safety. I couldn't move out. No amount of talking worked. He made endless promises and excuses, sometimes blaming me for things I had done to protect others years earlier. I had defended him countless times as a kid when he picked fights. It took years to finally cut all contact. My mom often excused his threats and theft, even though he could have simply asked for what he wanted. He liked taking things without permission. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without locking my door. But now we have no contact, and the burden is gone. I no longer have to worry about him threatening, stealing from, or manipulating my mom. The anxiety and constant tension he caused ruined decades of our lives. He broke down my mother, who was the strongest woman I knew. I will never forgive him. I no longer consider him my brother, family, or even an acquaintance. This is why I believe some people are born harmful. He had a loving and supportive family that gave him everything, but it was never enough. No one else seemed real to him. Only his own needs mattered. He treated friends, partners, and family the same way. His social charm only made it worse, fooling people until he eventually turned on them, took from them, and spread lies. He would never forgive anything and would go to extremes for revenge, even when he was at fault. When my mother once refused to give him money because he had taken a large sum from her, He destroyed her clothes and shoes, smeared condiments all over her belongings, and then years later still used it as proof she was a bad mother because she gave pocket money to our little sister. My mom even apologized to him at times just to keep the peace, which only encouraged him further. Thankfully, she now realizes it was a mistake. Thinking about all this still upsets me, but the truth is, we are all happier than ever now that he is out of our lives. Story 6. Growing up, she had total control over my life. She criticized what I wore, listened to, ate, everything. If I was different, I was weird. If I liked what she liked, then I was copying her. She tried to scare me multiple times with weapons, claiming she would never actually hurt me. But she would hold a samurai sword to my throat and tell me if I moved, I would regret it. Eventually, she had a child when she was 19, and I was 16, and for a year she was a good mother. Then she decided she didn't want to be a mom anymore. I've seen her ruin countless people's lives, from stringing them along to draining their bank accounts to contributing to them ending up in legal trouble. She's still waiting for trial on her charge. I despise her, and she is not family to me. I had so many issues growing up that stem from things she did to me, and I don't want to see my niece grow up like that. My parents are doing a wonderful job of raising her, but she doesn't understand why her mom isn't there, and it breaks my heart. Story 7. My brother was given special treatment as a child because he was gifted at basketball. He had no consequences growing up and could do whatever he wanted. He treated me and our parents badly, and they still gave him special treatment, while I would be punished for the most minor things. His life is a mess now. He has no sense of self-worth and just gets handouts from my parents. He is in his late 30s, and my parents are still giving him money for rent and food. He wants everyone to feel sorry for him and expects everything to be handed to him. He can't do anything on his own and manipulates my parents into doing whatever he needs or just giving him extra money. He has no incentive to change and is content playing video games all day, while my parents enable his lifestyle. During holidays, he talks down to me and tries to make me feel bad about how difficult his life is. I have no desire to talk to him until he makes serious changes in his lifestyle and choices. Story 8. He never got a diagnosis, but he's very good at deceiving. He always tried to get all the attention and would cry to get me punished so he could spend more time playing with my game console that I had saved up for myself. I ended up being the black sheep, with my mom constantly threatening to call Child Protective Services. If I had understood things better back then, I might have preferred that. He was always sick and always the victim. It got so bad that they once forgot me at home when they went to my grandparents and didn't realize it until they heard me crying alone at night behind a couch. There's a lot I'm not including, but it wasn't just emotional harm. He used the family dynamics to turn us against each other. I confronted him many times, and years later he seems to be trying to be himself rather than always playing the victim. Still, I don't want to be around anyone here. It's uncomfortable even to be near them, but it's still better than being in that situation and having to deal with it. Story 9. My dad is as much of a narcissist as it gets. I didn't realize it was abnormal until I moved out of the house and out of state. When I came back, I remember him calling me one day to ask me to give him $10 because he said he needed to get something to eat. Sorry, but I don't have $10 to give you. You don't have $10 to give your dad? Come on, I'll pay you right back. I just need it to go down to the store so I can eat. I don't have it, so you'll have to handle it yourself. Well, I was going to ask your sister, but I don't want to ask her because she's my daughter, you know. I hung up after that. A few minutes later, he called me again and said, "Hey, your sister just sent me the $10. See, it wasn't that hard." A couple of months later, I heard that he was still asking my sister for money. On her anniversary with my brother-in-law, he called and upset her to the point of tears when she said no. Then he told her, "So you're just going to let your dad freeze to death outside tonight?" My brother-in-law told him never to call them again, and I haven't heard from him since. He honestly thinks he is popular and a good person, but he isn't. I blocked his number and want nothing to do with him anymore. It's strange because you either grow to be just like them or completely the opposite. I've had to grow up on my own without a father figure to teach me how to make good decisions or lead a household. These are things many people take for granted without realizing how valuable they are. I always envy people who can still live with their parents into their 20s. I moved out at 18, And now at almost 30, I wish every day that I could have stayed at home without worrying about rent, utilities, car payments, insurance, gas, phone, internet, and all the rest. Story 10. 2-year divorce and custody battle. I was a faithful, happy, and devoted husband and father. I gave up my music and my small business to stay home with our child at her request. She had shown severe emotional and mental instability before our child's birth, was prescribed medication, which helped greatly, but stopped taking it when our child was conceived and never resumed. My goal was to protect him as much as possible. She got worse again. She started a relationship and affair with another coworker she had hired and devised a plan to destroy me. She had me arrested, removed from our home, left me without money, a job, a vehicle, or a place to live, and told the court I was abusive, neglectful, an alcoholic, and financially irresponsible. Without court involvement, she blocked my access to our child's education and medical care. I have access now. Our son developed asthma and she hid it. He was prescribed 2 inhalers and she only gave me 1. When I tried to contact his school and doctors, she claimed I was harassing them. I endured 4 months of supervised visitation for 1 hour a week, 2 CPS investigations. No case was ever opened. I now have my son overnight on a regular schedule. She still refuses to settle and wants sole custody. She took out a $120,000 loan on our apartment a year ago without my approval or the court's knowledge. I brought in a forensic psychologist who tested us. My results were labeled too well adjusted, which they suggested meant I was in denial. Her results indicated a tendency toward persecutory behavior and dramatization. I've done nothing but comply, extend olive branches, and cooperate, but she continues to accuse and take. She told the forensic evaluator we had a nanny, no proof, and we didn't, and that I pleaded guilty to the charges. I didn't. They were dropped. She told the doctor that our child's preschool couldn't administer his medication, but I have a recording of them confirming they could and do. Story 11. My sociopathic older sister, 3 years older, and I shared a bedroom growing up. I slept on my stomach with my head under the pillow and my stuffed animals on both sides because she would attack me in my sleep. She would lock me in our old, dilapidated, spider-infested shed instead of babysitting me. She would invite me to hang out with her and her friends, something I desperately wanted, only for everyone to be nice for 5 minutes before she would suddenly turn on me, physically hurt me, while her friends laughed. They bullied me all day, every day. I was sweeping the kitchen one afternoon when she came in, grabbed the broom, and hit me with it. Telephone receivers, tennis rackets, soccer cleats, and hairbrushes were among her preferred tools to hurt me. When I was 18, I still lived at home, and she lived a couple of miles away. After work one day, she showed up at our parents' house and invited me over, telling me to bring something I owned. Knowing she was just using me, I declined. An hour later, as I was leaving to go to the store, I saw her speeding toward me on our street. She crashed into my car, totaling it. Currently, my mother, my brother, his partner, his ex-wife and her husband, and my 18-year-old niece all have restraining orders against my now 44-year-old sister. She has been banned from multiple public places for her explosive tirades. She was arrested for assaulting a family member, and as the police were putting handcuffs on her, she said, "I should have hurt her worse." My dad has always bailed her out, so she's never been held accountable and genuinely believes the rules apply only to others. According to every mental health provider I've spoken to in the past 25 years, she is a narcissistic sociopath. Story 12. Not about a sibling, but a parent. My father left home after 15 years of marriage. My older sisters left at 13. My mother was afraid to lose me too, so she started telling me I was bad at everything, that I'd need a disability pension to survive, and even sent me to a mental hospital, telling me to pretend certain things. She also told the doctors fabricated stories about me being violent toward her. Then she would tell me I couldn't survive on my own with just a disability pension. When I said I'd get a job, she told me to be realistic, find work first, and then I could think about moving out. I once asked her how to do laundry, and she said, "If you don't know, you're not ready to live on your own." She claimed she'd help me with job applications, but when I applied for physical work and asked her to confirm my reliability, She secretly told employers I was lazy and would cause problems. I never got hired. I eventually moved abroad without telling her. 2 years later, she said she was moving in with me and started knocking on my door, speaking loudly in Russian so neighbors would think I was from there. Story 13. My sister is a narcissist. When we were little, she would threaten me and say cruel things. As we grew older, she told lies to get me punished and manipulated others to feel sorry for her. My younger sisters, who were much younger than her, were called names and told that the family was embarrassed by them. She was targeting a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old when she left for college. Our parents enabled this behavior for years, telling us to ignore her and rarely reprimanding her. She is almost 50 now and still acts the same, but we can choose not to deal with her, though she still tries to divide the family. She is most effective with me because she is the oldest and the most favored. Once I loaned her something, and she later claimed someone else broke it. I knew she'd refuse to take responsibility. Our mother would agree with her, and Dad would follow Mom. So I told the school superintendent, since she claimed it broke there. When we got home, she complained to our parents, and my dad came in and scolded me for airing family matters in public without asking for my side. My mom told me that social life is different in high school and insisted I was in the wrong. Story 14. In recent memory, she was getting married. Bridezilla doesn't even cover it. Our parents are wealthy business owners and agreed to help pay for the wedding. She assured them that having it outside with a rented tent would be cheaper than a hall. It wasn't. They paid for grass seed, tent rental, tables, chairs, portable restrooms, alcohol, and materials for a dance floor. The total came to about $20,000 from their pockets. They never got a thank you, and the groom's parents, who didn't contribute financially, treated them badly. At the time, I was very sick and needed surgery, but I delayed it so I could attend the wedding. I was in constant pain and working full-time. She and her maid of honor got upset because I didn't take enough time off work for wedding events. I didn't want to attend the bachelorette weekend due to my health, but she guilt-tripped me, saying I probably didn't even want to be in the wedding. I went anyway, and it was miserable. That wedding was when she and her husband showed their true colors. They accused me and my parents of being unsupportive. She still brings it up 2 years later. We hardly speak now. Story 15. I don't use sociopath as a random insult for her. She has a very high opinion of herself, posting online about what a good person she is, never admitting when she's wrong or taking responsibility for anything. She was fired for arriving hours late to work repeatedly. She'd fall back asleep whenever we tried waking her. But she insists it was because her boss had it out for her. When she does admit fault, she always has an excuse. She shows no concern for other people's problems. For example, when I got in trouble for a mess her kids made, she said I was just complaining about nothing. And she likes to target people she knows can't fight back, like our autistic sister. The moment she truly crossed the line was when my parents found out she stole hundreds of dollars from their bank account. This happened on the day they had to take me to the hospital because the right side of my face was numb. It turned out to be Bell's palsy. While they were worried I might have had a stroke, she tried to take their money. My parents were ready to cut ties and press charges, but she made up a story about being addicted and needing help. She does have substance issues, but she doesn't want help. She's been living with our grandmother to get rehabilitated for the last few months, leaving us to take care of her kids. I know she's just trying to avoid legal consequences. Story 16. I don't know if my oldest brother, who I'll call B, is a narcissist or something else, but there's definitely something wrong. He was an only child for 5 years and would have preferred it stayed that way. He would pinch our sister until Dad stopped him, and later did the same to my older brother T, who's 14 years younger than him. He never targeted me, but as T grew older, B tried to hurt him whenever possible. B dated a woman who was still legally married and often brought her kids, and sometimes her siblings to our house to eat, even though Dad was disabled and Mom was unemployed. Later, when he broke up with her, he got his new partner pregnant, and they took over our home, eating our food and controlling the TV. When Dad passed away suddenly, the funeral home allowed us to make payments. B, who earned the most money, signed an agreement to pay, but stopped because it made him sad. Mom eventually got a letter about missed payments, and I ended up paying off the funeral and buying the headstone. He once called me at 4 a.m. while I was traveling with my now husband because he couldn't reach Mom. After his second wife left him, he called Mom at all hours, disturbing her sleep despite her heart problems. When I told him, he made it about himself. When T's wife died unexpectedly, B told him it was worse when his wives left him because at least she loved you. At my wedding, I had Mom walk me down the aisle since Dad was gone. B said he should have done it because he was the oldest son. He didn't like that our minister was female, and when I asked him to get black dress pants so he wouldn't stand out from the other groomsmen, he refused and wore brand new jeans instead. At the reception, his son pinched T, causing an argument that led to B and his family leaving. Now he's deeply religious, believes he's always right, and we rarely speak. Story 17. My half-brother from my dad's affair has been cruel for as long as I can remember. Every pet he's had has died within weeks. He used to physically harm his girlfriend, once so severely that she lost teeth. He lies constantly, stole money from my mother after surgery and from his own mother. When his girlfriend decided to leave him, he threatened to harm her and their twins, even feeding one child food they were allergic to. During a custody dispute, he tried to take the kids and told my dad over dinner that if he couldn't have full custody, he'd harm them just to hurt their mother. He bullied me as a child, including pushing me out of my wheelchair. He once pinched my son hard enough to leave bruises and told my other brother, "I like to see him squirm." He has made racist, homophobic, and anti-religious remarks toward my wife, thrown her copy of the Quran into a fireplace at Christmas, and tried to remove her hijab. He has stalked a coworker, been arrested over a dozen times for drug charges, and openly identifies with extremist beliefs. His crimes include arson, and he's now serving 15 years in state prison. Story 18. My sister doesn't take responsibility for her actions. She got out of prison in February and may be going back soon to finish her sentence. She claims her corrections officer is just being mean, despite testing positive for coca, meth, and marijuana while 5 months pregnant. I have all 4 of her other kids living with me. Until recently, I had 2, and their father had the other 2. She calls constantly, knowing it's expensive, and expects us to answer every time. I've stopped answering because I can't afford it. The last time I picked up, she cried and begged me to post her bond, asking me to put up my car as collateral along with a few $100s, promising the rest would come later. I've bailed her out before, and instead of having the money returned to me, she told the court to put it toward her fines. I've lost money and personal property because of her, so I refuse to do more. I will, however, continue to care for her children and do what I can for them. Story 19. One time I didn't order my sister a pizza, and she locked me out of the house for the rest of the day. Another time, she asked me to make her a sandwich, and I forgot to put cheese on it. She screamed, "You did this just to mess with me!" and then physically attacked me. 6 or 7 years ago, I bought her a really nice pair of red suede boots she wanted for Christmas, and she then proceeded to hit me in the arms and legs with them for a reason that I can't quite remember. When I was 4 or 5, she told me that everyone dies and that my mom was going to die. When our parents got divorced and my mom moved us into an apartment, my sister never let me leave my room so she could have the whole place to herself. I found out later it was because she was smoking cigarettes and didn't want to get caught. But if I left my room, I was chased right back in with the threat that if I tried to leave again, she would hurt me. There are a few other little things here and there. I wasn't allowed to watch TV shows she liked or eat any kind of food or candy that she liked. I always had to play games that she wanted to play. I wasn't allowed to climb a certain tree in our backyard past a certain point, but she and my cousin could. She never let me sleep in my own bed. I always had to sleep in the bed with her, and she'd push me off the bed with her legs anyway. When I'd try to go back to my room, she'd scream, cry, and try to hit me until I came back. I'm sure she's done countless other things that I'm just blocking out, but it really did feel like being raised with a controlling tyrant of an older sister. Story 20. Not a sibling, but a parent. My father was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was about 9 years old. He was a stay-at-home dad since my mom had the better-paying job. I have 2 siblings. My sister was always the one terrorized by my father, and my brother was the child that he spent most time with. I mostly remember one incident where my sister was coming home from school, having already eaten because we could never be sure if we would be fed that day. That time he had cooked. My sister told him that she wasn't hungry, and he became aggressive toward her. She was lucky to have gotten out of the way before he could reach her, but our kitchen door did not survive. My brother, on the other hand, experienced even worse parenting. He never really had friends, and since my father never let him play alone, he now gets extremely angry when my mom doesn't allow him to use the PlayStation. He has grown very entitled. After the incident with the kitchen door, I started thinking about how I could get rid of him to save my family from him. He did have a psychiatrist, but he did not trust them and never took his medication because he chose to self-treat with alcohol. He once told me it was healthier to be an alcoholic than to be addicted to psychiatric medication. At that point, I didn't have the energy to argue with him anymore. I asked my mom to divorce him, but she was sure they would get shared custody and feared that he would pick us up drunk or crash his car into a tree with us in it. I became really depressed and helpless because the only way we could ever seem to be free of him was if he wasn't around anymore. I cried myself to sleep for the next year because of that. This might sound harsh, but we were so relieved when he took his own life when I was 16. Since then, my mom only works half-time and found a better workplace where she makes the same amount of money as before. We finally got to eat regularly, and I gained 10 kilos, finally reaching a healthy BMI instead of being underweight. I still struggle with romantic relationships, but with my current partner, it has gotten a lot better. My first relationship was a nightmare, but that's a different story. Story 21. I wonder if my brother has a serious personality disorder because he has never really expressed remorse. He hit me and called me a lot of names when I was a kid. We have an 8-year age gap, so I was always on the receiving end. He plays a lot of mind games to get people upset, ranging from telling my family to all come to the house when I was 9 just so he could inform them, in a group, that I was fat. He does things to provoke people. He discards them when they serve no value to him. A great example is my aunt. He used to talk about harming her and called her awful names, but if she had money, he was sweet as honey to her. The moment she stepped out the door, she was back to being someone he insulted. He also habitually lies about things he owns, and it's not even because he lacks money. He makes over $100,000 a year. He lies to people who are factory workers about owning boats, four-wheelers, or basically anything they have talked about wanting. He has done things like take money and refuse to pay it back, sell an engine hoist he was borrowing from a family member, have me landscape his whole yard and refuse to pay, and laugh about making my grandparents go bankrupt after they co-signed a car for him when he was 18. Honestly, we are all probably lucky my brother is so successful in his field. He even has a wife and a dog, but he has an unhealthy fascination with violence, in my opinion. He loves horror films for the gore, jokes about slaughterhouse scenes, used to watch disturbing videos of real people dying, and as a kid, harmed animals for fun. I remember him making a pile of more than a dozen blackbirds he had shot and topping it off with a goldfinch. I also remember him talking about harming animals in other cruel ways. He is also strangely obsessed with criticizing how women act or dress, despite not being raised in a house that would instill that value. He's incredibly meticulous. His house and room have always been spotless and very organized. He used to get really upset when his friends moved any of his toys or touched his things. The worst part, probably, is that he's not only relatively attractive, but he's also mastered masking. He can be charming, he can appeal to people by talking about shelter dogs, he can lead in business. He can fit in almost anywhere, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't have friends because he sees them as tiring or stupid. He views nearly all social aspects of life as drains, a network to get to a goal. But I think the peak of my brother's cruelty was when he broke up with his first long-term girlfriend after years together. He openly messaged his current wife while still with the other girl, literally while she cried, and asked him to stop, acting like she wasn't even there. My mom had to tell the girl to leave my brother because she wouldn't do it herself. After the breakup, my brother began parading around the fact that she had been abused as a child, using it to insult her. He laughed about it. She was the kind of person who went out of her way to help others and volunteer in her community, someone who was sweet and innocent and loved him entirely. And she meant nothing to him. Story 22. He may not be as bad as some siblings in this thread, but my brother is still pretty bad. I believe he's bipolar or something similar because he gets angry very easily and out of nowhere. But my parents have never had him tested. A few years back, he got mad, threw one of my shoes at me, and busted a hole in my wall. All he got for that was a stern talking to from my parents, and he yelled at them in return. Another time, he threw an airsoft gun at me and dented my bed frame. When I get an attitude with him because he's annoying me, he goes on a huge rant about how I have an attitude problem and tells my parents they need to do something about me. Because once the real world hits and I get an attitude with the wrong person, I'm going to get punched in the face. He also puts me down when I try to make a joke around his friends. We share a friend group, saying I'm just trying to show off in front of them or act cool. Recently, when I changed my hairstyle from the one I'd had all my life, he said it looked dumb. Now that I have a job and a little spending money, he'll ask me what I want to do with it. And when I tell him I want to build a PC, he goes on about how I should spend my money on something that lasts and not something that'll only last me a year. He even suggested I buy a project vehicle he found so we could work on it together. Sorry if this is long and hard to understand, but once I started typing, all these things came flooding back, and I wanted to get them off my chest. The only people I talk to about it are my friends, and they're probably tired of hearing about it. Story 23. My sister played the victim for our entire childhood. She never lifted a finger to clean, and my parents didn't seem to care. She once choked me with a charger cable because I wouldn't make her a sandwich. I punched her in the face once for throwing a chicken strip at me. When I was younger, she used to physically intimidate me, pushing me while berating me and saying things like, "What are you going to do?" Then I joined weight training and eventually pushed her out of my doorway into hers. She once tried to take her own life by swallowing every pill in the cabinet. My parents responded by buying her a car. Soon after, she got intoxicated and convinced me she was sober enough to drive. She asked me to give her my phone so she could go get hers. She was 15. I was 12 or 13. I hid the car keys but eventually gave them to her. She went on a high-speed chase and ended up hitting someone. I had both house phones with the ringers turned all the way down, waiting for her to call me. When the phone lit up and it said, "Police department," my heart sank. I answered, and they told me she was in the hospital. I had to wake my mom up. I felt like it was my fault. My parents then enrolled her in cosmetology school after that event. The guilt I carried from that lasted years. That event affected our family's life tremendously, financially, and in countless other ways. Nothing was the same after. She went through court and CPS got involved. Eventually, she spiraled into using hero and meth. She's now in such a fragile mental state that she says she can't listen to the white noise from a fan because it opens the door for demons in her mind. I moved to Texas 2 years ago, and I will never go back. The guilt still lingers. Story 24. My older sister has never been diagnosed because if you bring up therapy, she takes it as a personal attack. She's 28, only a year and a half older than me, and after years of putting up with her abuse because that's just how she is, thanks, Mom and Dad, I haven't had contact with her in over a year. I tried explaining to her that she's been emotionally abusing both me and my mom, but she's never taken responsibility or apologized. I've endured being punched in the face and having my glasses broken because I changed the radio station in front of one of my friends, to being told nobody cares about me and that I should just keep quiet. The last time I had contact with her, we were both visiting our parents. I was there to see a specialist for a chronic pain condition. My sister woke me up at 6:30 a.m. by singing at the top of her lungs and slamming doors. I told my mom I might switch rooms, and since my sister had a friend coming to stay, my mom mentioned it. My sister exploded, claiming I was keeping her up at night Skyping my partner. I explained that he worked at 4 a.m. and was in bed by 6, but she replied, "Well, 2 years ago you did." I stood up and left the room, and she started screaming that it was our mom's fault I didn't like her, because Mom coddled me. That was the last straw. She's reached out since, but I ignore her. She only acts this way with me and my mom. She lives on a different continent, so it's easy to cut her out, and I'm a much happier person without her in my life. Story 25. My mother is a huge narcissist. Her favorite thing was gaslighting and projecting onto others. The day I'd finally had enough was when she kept berating my disabled sister while extremely drunk. I told her to please just go to bed. She turned her anger on me and said, "You're not even a real woman. You hate her. You wish she was dead in a ditch." Nothing good ever came out of my relationship with your stupid, worthless father, not even you. No man will ever love you or give you children because you're not a real woman. She has 7 children, each with different fathers. She resented my oldest sister, in a wheelchair, because she had her at 17 and was forced to take care of her throughout her young adult life until she got in trouble for drugs. It took her 2 years to talk to me again after that night, and even then, it wasn't to apologize. She wanted to know why I hadn't talked to her and how I could be so bitter toward her. She's not really part of my life anymore. Occasionally she asks for money, which I never give her. She gets mad, calls me selfish, and then we don't speak for weeks. I'm doing well for myself now, while she and my stepfather struggle financially due to their poor money management. They like to pretend it's my problem. I'm happier with them at a distance, and my sister lives with me now. Story 26. My 2 years older brother, 35, is most definitely a narcissist and possibly a sociopath. When we were young, he would manipulate me into doing his bidding. He was lazy and controlling, and with divorced parents who didn't intervene, I became something he could control. My belongings were his belongings, and my low self-esteem made me compliant. He hit me and threatened me countless times if he didn't get what he wanted. In high school, I began to distance myself from him. We moved between houses each week because of shared custody. I hated it, especially at Dad's. Dad was stubborn, uncompromising, and the reason for the divorce. He and my brother would argue endlessly, and I'd be forced to stay at the table and listen. My brother blamed everything around him for his problems, while I believed everything was my fault. My parents ignored every request to separate us. When he left for university, it was the best time of my life. Holidays were when I realized how much I liked him not being around. My parents eventually noticed too, only after he started treating them badly. Summers when he moved back home were the same as before. Later, my parents convinced me to attend the same university. There he became a womanizer. His looks and vanity gave him a reputation that affected me socially. I remember hitting it off with a girl, only for her to lose interest when she learned he was my brother. After leaving university, we had little contact until our parents talked us into living together in an apartment. It lasted about a year. He ate my food, barged into my room, tried to make me pay more rent, did drugs with friends in our home, and let friends sleep in my bed when I was away. The last straw was finding my bed full of sand from the beach. He denied it, and when told to clean it, he just put my sheets in the dryer and left them there. From then on, I've had minimal contact with him. I blame my parents for enabling him. We don't talk, and he will never set foot in my house. He's probably slept with over 300 women, and my mom still hopes for a grandchild. He recently moved to my town, but we will never meet up. Growing up with him damaged me, but it also made me determined to be the opposite of what he is. It's part of why I'm moving into law enforcement, to protect those who can't protect themselves. Story 27. She always made me do everything for her when we were growing up, and if I didn't listen to her or put up any form of argument, she would berate me, telling me I was worthless and that nobody actually loved me or ever would. When you hear that almost every day as a child, you start to believe it. It eventually led to self-harm, and when my mom and she found out, instead of asking what was wrong or trying to help, she told me that all I ever did was ruin her life. Because of her, I developed not only self-esteem issues but also serious social problems. She would insist that I go everywhere with her, and if I ever wanted to hang out with friends without her, she would berate me again. Now it's difficult for me to make friends because I constantly think nobody actually likes me, even if they say they do. I trust almost no one. That's just part of it. Narcissists are extremely toxic, and the full list of what she's done is too long to write here. Everyone always says siblings fight, it's just what happens. But no, not like this. Siblings shouldn't make you feel worthless. Story 28. My sister is a narcissist, and growing up with her was like living with a control freak. She's actually my younger sister, but that never stopped her from needing to be in charge of everything. She constantly tore others down to make herself feel superior. If new kids moved into the area, she would insult and belittle me to them. I had a stutter for most of my life, and she used it to mock me, telling other kids I was stupid. Because of her, I never had many friends, and the few I did have, she would go out of her way to badmouth, insult, and ruin those friendships. She always had to get her way, completely. If I was playing a video game and she wanted to play, our parents made me stop and play with her. but it was never about joining in. She didn't want to play the game I was playing or wait for me to finish. She had to be player one, and if she didn't get that, she'd cry to our parents that I wasn't letting her play, and then none of us got to play anything. This wasn't when we were little kids. It was when we were 11 and 12 years old. Even now, she insults anyone and anything she doesn't like. But if you dare insult her or her friends, she'll explode, yelling and tearing into you. Her favorite TV show is Lost, and if you say anything negative about it, she'll scream at you. She keeps a mental record of people's failures, ready to bring them up at any moment. If you get a new job, a promotion, or even answer a trivia question correctly when she doesn't know the answer, she'll immediately tell you, "You suck," followed by a list of your past mistakes. My ex-girlfriends and my ex-wife can't stand her. My friends can't tolerate her. Some family members have chosen not to associate with her at all. Her oldest child is about to turn 18, and we've told them, if you want to move in with your grandfather after you turn 18, we'll help you pack. Because my sister is passing her toxic behavior onto her kids. Story 29. Funny you should mention it, because I've recently come to the conclusion that I should break ties with my sister. She is absolutely a narcissist and shows traits that align with sociopathy, though I wouldn't say she's completely one or the other. Since I'm still in the process of distancing myself, I might recognize more of it later. For now, I'll share everything, as this is still ongoing and has a lot of backstory. I've always made excuses for her because her behavior seemed to make sense to me. We have different fathers, and she's several years older than me. My father is my mother's current husband. While things weren't always perfect, my parents were amazing overall. My dad went through a rough patch and struggled with illness, which made him short-tempered at times, but he was never violent or cruel. My sister, however, experienced neglect from her own father, and at times from both my mom and my dad when she was younger. Because of this, I excused a lot of her behavior. I also had my own struggles. I went through severe mental health issues after surviving abuse and spending my teenage years in a toxic relationship. While I managed to get out and receive treatment, I'm still vulnerable when stressed, which has been the case this past year. During this time, my sister seemed to be trying to get her life in order. She has 2 children whom I love dearly, and a husband who, honestly, isn't the best person. She picked up working out as a hobby. She changes interests often, so at first no one took it too seriously, but this one stuck. Maintaining a good relationship with her has always been important to me, and I've gone above and beyond to make her happy. Spending thousands on gifts, trips, events, and even babysitting almost every night when she was separated from her husband. Whenever she was struggling, I dropped everything to be there for her. She would be grateful for a few days, but then it was as if it never happened. I often blame myself, thinking if she didn't love me, it must have been something I did wrong. Recently, while I was in a fragile state, she began posting constant workout updates. Because I'd survived a life-threatening eating disorder, these posts were triggering for me. I didn't bring it up to her directly. Instead, I went to my mom for advice. My mom, concerned, mentioned it to my sister. My sister's reaction was explosive. She accused us of not being happy for her and of ignoring her progress. That reaction alone would have been one thing, but she escalated by posting about it publicly on social media, mocking the idea that her fitness journey could be triggering and making snide comments about it. Her friends chimed in, agreeing with her. This was when something clicked in me. I realized this reaction was extreme for such a minor issue, and I started remembering incidents I had buried. Like the time she hit me with a wet towel in front of her friends, pulling up my sleeves to reveal self-harm scars, telling people about my trauma without my consent, mocking my mental health online, and even making fun of my eating disorder at our grandfather's funeral. She has been gaslighting and humiliating me for years, and I had mistaken it for normal sibling rivalry. I considered confronting her, thinking it was a communication problem, but my mom warned me that if it went badly, my sister would retaliate and make my life miserable. I waited until after my wedding to decide. Even at my wedding, she rolled her eyes, made jokes at my expense, and complained about everything. Behavior that other guests also noticed. If it weren't for her children, I'd cut contact completely. But I love those kids and I won't abandon them. Instead, I've decided to keep my life private from her. She doesn't know about my upcoming surgery, and if I ever get pregnant, she'll only find out when everyone else does. Any information I give her ends up twisted and used against me, and I refuse to let it happen anymore. This might not be the most extreme story out there, but for anyone dealing with something similar, whether it's a family member or a friend, please know this: it is abuse. You don't deserve it, and you do not have to tolerate it. Story 30. My brother is both a narcissist and a psychopath. I have never seen anyone get away with as much as he has. He can be incredibly charming and fun when there's something in it for him, and then become a complete raging nightmare the next moment. I developed a fear of water for years because he used to push me under whenever we went swimming. I became claustrophobic because he would lock me in the trunk of our mom's car for hours. Things like that happen so often that I still flinch when someone so much as raises a hand near me, because I can't forget how he used to hurt me in every way he could. When we were children, he harmed both me and our cousin in ways I was too afraid to talk about. The fear of speaking out kept me silent for years. His need to control others was unmatched. He once took my laptop and my console's power cord when he thought I was acting out and refused to return them, no matter what my mom or I said. He's stolen countless items, including our mom's engagement rings from both my dad and stepdad, and sold them to feed his drug habit. He took thousands from her credit card and more than 1,000 from me. He is a master manipulator, always managing to make me look like the unstable one to our family. Only a few close friends know the truth about him. Even now in our 20s, my family still doesn't see the reality of the person he is. He's been in jail more times than I can count, yet somehow manipulates the system to avoid long-term consequences. Once, when he had a warrant out for his arrest, he was high and threatened to take his own life in front of me because I wasn't doing what he asked, even though his request made no sense. Despite that, he makes cruel jokes about mental health struggles and crimes against women, as if those topics are entertaining. One of his former friends once told me they used to make disturbing comments about me and our mom when they hung out. Even as an adult, I am afraid for my safety. I hate him with every ounce of my being. He has shown me that there is real malice in the world. I can't even fully describe the destruction and pain he leaves in people's lives, especially mine. He is living proof that some people bring nothing but chaos and misery wherever they go. Story 31. Ironically, I came across this post right after a fight with my sister. It's unsettling how similar these stories are to my own experiences growing up with a narcissistic older sibling. I recently got married, and as I enter this new phase of life, I've decided I no longer want her in it. I've kept her at a distance even after all the childhood trauma she caused, but in adulthood, it's become worse than ever. She's an energy drain, constantly saying or doing the most ridiculous things to grab attention around my new family. She's never been genuinely supportive or helpful. Everything is about appearances on social media, showing off this supposedly perfect life. The reality? Her husband recently filed for divorce after an incident of domestic violence where she lashed out physically. She's also an absent parent, often gone all day or taking week-long solo trips for fun. My young nephew actually prefers when she's not around because she makes him anxious. My brother-in-law, whom I've grown close to, now has custody of their child and has a restraining order against her, which is honestly the best thing for my nephew's future. I'm committed to supporting both of them because beyond being the closest family they have, I genuinely love and care for them. Every time she's around, I feel nothing but anger and resentment. She lies constantly and I no longer trust her. I dislike the version of myself that comes out when she's present. It's not who I want to be for my family. Even on my wedding day, she started drama for no reason, barging into a space where my groomsmen were hanging out and creating a scene. It was embarrassing, and my friends finally saw the dynamic I had tried to hide for years. My wife supports my decision to cut ties. I'm finally accepting that I need to do this to protect my mental health and move forward. The part I struggle with is the guilt. She has serious mental health conditions, and part of me feels a responsibility to help her. But every suggestion I've given for her own benefit has been ignored. All my advice falls on deaf ears. It's a painful conflict, wanting to protect myself by cutting her off, yet feeling a moral obligation to help because she's family. I'm learning that sometimes, no matter how much you want to save someone, you can't force them to change.